This is Notorious POD, the podcast for the best informed people in the real estate industry. Rob Hahn is your host, and Notorious is where the real estate industry comes for real talk with no bullshit.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Musings. I haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks. It's just been a real busy time, but something occurred to me today as I was driving back and forth, and it was. I think I'm going to talk about this. I think I'm going to muse about it. As many of you know, I'm a pretty big supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner. I do competitive shooting. I'm a big fan. All right. And this is not like some secret, and a lot of my friends know about it. But a couple years ago, so a bunch of things happened, right? As we all know, and I had one of the most amusing, I suppose, if you will, of instances. So I have most of my friends are I guess we'll call them, on the left side of the political spectrum, and they're pretty anti-gun. There's one in particular I'm thinking about, who's a venture capitalist in Northern California. Super great guy, really smart. But he was about as anti-gun as it comes, right? And he's actually not from the U.S. He's not, American born. So we used to have these debates, in the past about like, what's wrong with you people? Like, what's wrong with you Americans with your gun obsession? It's crazy. You should have a lot more laws. Like all of those things, and we would debate back and forth. All right. Then 2020 happens, and we get the lockdowns, and then we get George Floyd, and then we get the riots, and we get that stuff start to happen. And out of nowhere, this friend of mine calls and asks me what gun he should get. I nearly fell off the chair. I was like, what? It never occurred to me like that he would be the one talking about getting a firearm. But obviously, like, understood. So I give him some advice, and he is now I don't want to say proud. I think that's the wrong word. I think he's a reluctant gun owner because he recognized when shit hits the fan, like, this is something the gun community talks about all the time. It's like, when seconds count, police are minutes away. And he realized that there's only so much, even in, sort of really safe neighborhoods, even, I think he lives somewhere like near Palo Alto, even like really safe communities, you actually, turns out, cannot rely on somebody else to defend you and your family if something really horrible starts to happen, right? Okay. Why do I bring this up? Because I think there's a direct parallel to what's happening kind of right now in the real estate industry, right? Hear me out. So here's what I mean. In the last couple of days, I think I've written a couple of VIP posts because there's some really big legal things that went down, right? One is the class certification in Sitzer versus NAR, which is the Missouri case. That one wasn't surprising to me because I'm like, it's a class action lawsuit. It was from the start. Like, of course, it's going to get certified as a class. What was worth talking about in that was how the judge just went through and, sort of laid out all these things that are sort of suggestive of where he's going to go in the trial itself. But still, I mean, it wasn't that surprising. But the second thing that was surprising was when the Ninth Circuit's Court of Appeals reversed the dismissal of the lawsuit between PLS, I think it's Pocket Listing Service is what PLS stands for, and NAR, and a couple of MLSs. That one was surprising. And once again, in that sort of opinion, the Ninth Circuit made its feelings pretty clear. From a timing standpoint, I thought, oh my gosh, this now gives all sorts of things to talk about at mid-year coming up next week, right? So, but here's the thing, as I posted it, some of the comments, some of the reactions, there are a lot of folks out there like going, holy crap, like what the hell, right? And it really felt a little bit like, of course, right? But here's the parallel. Just like my friend who's, anti-gun his entire life, all of a sudden sort of like realized like reality has shifted. Things are not what I thought they were. And now I have to become more self-reliant. I have to go, in order to protect my family, my kids, I'm going to go get a gun. In a very similar way, the industry has spent decades, or at least years, right? Has spent a long time kind of relying on the MLS system to do things for them that they would have had to do otherwise. For example, cooperation compensation. What is the big value of this? When it gets down to it, when I thought about it further, it really is so that agents who are representing buyers don't have to have a conversation with their clients, with their buyers about here's what I'm going to do for you, and here's how much that's worth. Here's how I'm going to get paid. The MLS allowed you to not have to worry about that. Just like before we had, like crazy social unrest, you could just say, listen, I live in a safe neighborhood and the police are there. If something happens, I call 911, they come take care of it, right? It's a very similar mindset. And I say this because before I became a gun owner, that's how I thought. I live in a safe neighborhood. Something happens, I call the police, they'll come, they take care of it. After you become one, you realize yes, they're gonna come, but really, when you need to take care of something right now, right here, like it's on you, it's on me. Um, so it puts that additional burden on, right? It was a luxury, if you will, not to have that burden, right? And that's why why some of us we pay enormous amounts of money to live in super safe neighborhoods with great law enforcement presence and all of that, because, or in that case, for some cases, some of us live in gated communities with private armed security because we recognize it's a real luxury. We do pay for it, but it's a luxury not to have to worry about it. And I think that's the role that the MLS served for so long, right? That has allowed the industry as a whole, brokers and agents, have to not worry about that, to not have to have those conversations. Similarly, clear cooperation, when we have clear cooperation policy in place, and even before then, like, because, really, let's face it, this is a relatively modern phenomenon, right? And we started talking about off MLS, off market listings. I want to say, I mean, I was already in the industry, right? So maybe 2015, 2017 type time frame when MLSs started noticing like, wow, 20, 30% of transactions in our system are coming in with 0 days on market because they were done beforehand, right? Whether it's through coming soon or through just off MLS private networks or what have you. And they started worrying about it. So before that, though, like if you were an agent, you have a client says, I want to look at some houses or whatever, like go into the MLS, all the listings are there. It was a given that if you want to know what's in the market, you log into the MLS and the MLS took care of all of that for you. And obviously with clear cooperative policy, the whole idea behind it is you don't have to do the additional work. It's much more efficient. It's just easier for the MLS to have all of the inventory, that's on the market. If that goes away, and this is the thing, so if reality has changed, and it turns out you cannot rely on a third party, even if it's the MLS, even if it's, the government, whatever, even if it's one of these things, to do that for you, then yeah, that sucks. I don't know how else to put it. Like I love guns, I love shooting, I love all those things, but I have to say it kind of sucks that you don't have the luxury of just being able to rely on somebody else to take care of that for you. You've got to do it yourself. So I mentioned this because it's kind of a mixed bag. On the one hand, just like I was really sympathetic to my friend, the anti-gun friend who all of a sudden realized, oh shit, I got to get a firearm. I'm real empathetic, I think, to a lot of the brokers and the agents who are just having a tough time dealing with what appears to be reality, right? Where they just want to go, complain and bitch about these decisions, like these lawyers and they're scumbags and what's wrong with the society? What's wrong with the courts? Like I get it. I totally get it, like, because it sucks. And I'm super empathetic to it. At the same time, just like with my friend, it's like at the same time, reality is reality, right? And reality don't care about our feelings. It doesn't care about our fifis. So there's a riot in the streets and the police are busy elsewhere, then it is what it is. You're just gonna have to do what you got to do. In terms of what's happening with the MLS, if these things are happening, it sucks. And yeah, you can complain about it. But at the end of the day, the reality, the courts, the government, the reality doesn't care about our feelings. It doesn't care about our fifis. you're going to have to do what you got to do. What does that mean? It means you're going to have to learn some skills that you maybe never learned, never had to learn, don't want to learn, right? Just like my friend. He never wanted to learn how to shoot a gun. He never wanted to learn, and he never needed to learn safety rules. He never needed to think about, having a safe and like, he never had to do any of those things. It's expensive. It sucks that he has to do it. But you know what? Reality don't care about your feelings. You're going to have to learn those skills. And I guess I kind of feel the same way. Yes, it sucks that the MLS is under threat. Yes, it sucks that the government is coming after all of these things. But you know what? Reality doesn't care about your feelings. You're going to have to learn some skills. You're going to have to do some things that you didn't have to do. It sucks that you have to do them, but you have to do them. Things like having conversation with the clients about your value, that's going to happen, right? Just like I have to have that conversation with my clients, like, hey, I'm worth this much money. You're going to have that. The people who are already doing that, people who are already sort of used to it, they have an advantage, right? Just like if some, social unrest went down, I know that I have an advantage over my neighbors who don't have any training, who don't have any firearms. I do have that advantage. It is what it is. That's reality. I'm going to try and help them. And hopefully in our industry, those brokers and agents who already kind of know how to do that, who already have these skills, will start trying to help those who don't and need to learn those skills. But it just is what it is. And you're going to have to learn those skills. Things like, pocket listings and off-market listings. Yeah, you never had to really learn how to be part of those networks. Now you do. It sucks, and sorry, like it is what it is. Those things are going to happen. And I don't think it's about, I guess the reason I'm bringing it up is, there's a lot of ways in which this becomes sort of divisive within the industry, where people want to blame the greedy agents who are keeping these private networks and, or look down on the ones who don't belong, you suck. And I don't think that's helpful. And I think that's maybe destructive. In the same way, like if, there's a mob burning, stores down in your town, it's not that helpful at that point for those of us who maybe are more prepared to be like, oh, hey, look, you morons, you didn't prepare and you deserve what you get. I don't think that's, I mean, I won't do it. And I don't think that's the way we approach this. I think the way we got to approach this, hey, this sucks that this is happening. I'm prepared. Let me help. It's not about looking down on you. It's not about you then coming back at us and be like, yeah, you crazies. This is why we're like, no, man, it's not that. The reality is the situation has changed and things suck. And we're going to have to sort of help each other out in some fashion. So that's kind of how I see this. And hopefully, as, and our mid-year is happening next week, hopefully, the people are gathering, they'll be able to go beyond just the negativity, beyond just the complaining, if you will, beyond just trying to blame somebody for the problems or trying to yell and scream about how the courts are stupid. Like, fine, don't yell and scream, but it doesn't change anything. The reality is reality. And then maybe start thinking about, okay, now how do we help each other out here? How do we collaborate? How do we, and let's face it, if there's some sacrifices made, then fine. Some sacrifices have to be made. How do we move forward, right? How do we actually get past this into some future? Because there's a part of that feels like that future could actually be kind of positive, right? And again, I'm biased because I'm a gun owner. I think it would be real positive if most Americans, if most families had guns and knew how to use them safely to protect themselves. That's not for my benefit. That's for their benefit, right? In a similar way, I feel like, is it a horrible thing if most brokers and agents knew how to have compensation conversations with their clients? I don't think it is. Is it a horrible thing if most brokers and agents knew how to sort of become parts of networks so that they could have access to all the listings? I don't think that's terrible. But the new reality is coming upon us, and I think we just have to adapt to it. So I know it seems like a bizarre analogy, but it was like my two worlds colliding. So I just wanted to get this out. There aren't any long charts today. There's no videos to share. It's just my thoughts, and would love to know kind of your take on it. Thanks, y'all.